My family shut me out for 3 years. On Christmas, I was told to leave. Then I found the letter they hid and legally took everything. My name is Eli, and I'm 33 years old. Christmas used to be my favorite time of year. Lights on the porch, cinnamon in the air, and for a few hours, the world felt kinder. Or it used to. Things started to change in my family about 3 years ago, but it wasn't until last Christmas that everything truly fell apart, and it crashed down right on me. I pulled into the driveway just before 6 p.m., nervous but hopeful. I had a wrapped bottle of aged high-quality wine under one arm, along with a batch of homemade cookies I'd baked until 2 a.m. I even put on the red sweater my mother used to love, which she thought made me look like a Hallmark movie host. It was meant to be a kind gesture, maybe even a peace offering. I hadn't been around much in the past few years, not since Mum's death, and honestly, things with the family had grown tense. My sister, Samantha, would scold me for not visiting enough. Aunt Brenda always had something to complain about, usually how I supposedly thought I was better than everyone else after moving out of town for work. But I figured Christmas was different. We could all set our differences aside for one night, right? Apparently not. I rang the doorbell. Through the frosted glass, I noticed movement, shadows, and laughter. Someone peeked through the blinds and quickly closed them again. A second later, the door swung open. Aunt Brenda stood there in all her passive-aggressive glory, wearing a sparkling reindeer sweater, wineglass in hand, and that unmistakable look of contempt reserved just for me. "Oh," she said flatly, not bothering to hide her annoyance. "You actually showed up." I offered her a polite smile. "Merry Christmas, Aunt B." She glanced over her shoulder, then back at me with a sigh, as if I'd tracked dirt into her pristine home. "We don't want you here. Go ruin someone else's holiday." Her voice was low and cutting, like a whisper that could pierce bone. I blinked. "What?" She leaned in closer, her expression unchanging. "This is a family gathering. You've made it pretty clear over the last few years that you're not part of this family anymore." I tried to see past her into the living room. There they were, my relatives, uncles, even my father. They were all seated around the large table, golden and warm under the chandelier. Samantha was spooning gravy onto her plate, laughing at something Uncle Mike had said. Dad carved the turkey as if nothing was wrong. Nobody looked up. Nobody came to greet me. Everyone knew I was out there. I'm not sure how long I stood there, stunned. I opened my mouth to speak, but all that came out was a sharp gasp. "I see," I finally managed to say sincerely. "I saw everything." I turned and walked down the steps without looking back. My cookies shifted slightly on the tray, but I held them steady. I didn't run or slam the gate. Instead, I walked back to my car as large, wet snowflakes began to fall, the kind that melt instantly but create a quiet calm, as if the whole world was holding its breath. I sat in the car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. It wasn't anger or despair, just a hollow feeling in my chest. I had driven for 2 hours. I had prepared what I would say to Dad. I even brought a gift for Melanie's newborn. Even though she never replied to my congratulatory message, it would have been easy to cry. It's easier still to get angry, but I did neither. I simply whispered, "Got it," and started the engine. I had only driven 5 minutes when my phone started, buzzing, first one call, then another. I ignored them, letting them go to voicemail. I didn't want to hear it. No excuse, no lie could erase Brenda's expression when she said what she did. None of it would erase the image of my entire family huddled in the warm glow, as if I never existed. Then came the 10th call. "Dad," I finally answered, if only out of morbid curiosity. "Eli," he said in a weak voice. There was noise in the background, slamming doors, shouting. "Yeah," I said gently. "Where are you?" "On my way home." "What?" He didn't respond immediately. I could hear Samantha in the background saying something. I couldn't understand, then whispering, "He's not picking up, Dad. Just let it go." But Dad wouldn't let it go. "Turn around, please. Something's happened. Something's happened," I said softly. "What? Did the turkey dry out?" He ignored the jab. "Eli, just come back. Please. You need to come back." I almost laughed. "You need me to come back now? After your sister told me to ruin someone else's holiday?" Dad took a deep breath, as if battling himself. "I didn't know. I swear to God, I didn't know she said that. I didn't even know you were at the door until 10 minutes ago." There was a thud, as if he were moving quickly, maybe grabbing a coat. I heard wind, then footsteps. "Where are you now?" he asked. "About 10 minutes away." "Why?" "I'm coming to get you," he said. "Just stay where you are. Please, Eli, don't hang up." I didn't respond right away. Then I noticed headlights behind me in the rearview mirror. Someone had sped out of the driveway. That's when I realized my father had left. He had physically walked out of the house on Christmas night. I had never seen him do it. He was the one who carved the turkey, passed the rolls, and made the toast the centerpiece of everything. "Eli," he murmured again, breathless, "wait for me." And with that, the hollow feeling in my chest began to twist, not into hope, but into something else. Because I suddenly had a feeling that whatever happened next would not be calm or easy, and what he was about to tell me would change everything. I parked in a gas station lot about a mile down the road. The place was mostly dark, save for the flickering hum of one overhead light and the flashing red numbers of a lottery sign that hadn't been updated since Halloween. I parked at the edge, next to an old dumpster, and cut the engine. Snow was settling on the windshield, leaving tiny patterns like frostbite lace. I didn't turn on the heat. A minute later, a car swerved in my father's silver Subaru. It screeched slightly as it pulled to a halt alongside me. The door swung open, revealing him with a barely zipped jacket, one glove on and the other clutched in his fist. He said nothing at first, but stood outside my car, his chest heaving. His face was flushed from the cold, or maybe something else. He looked older and smaller under the parking lot lights. I rolled down my window. "You okay?" He nodded and motioned urgently. "Get out, please. I need to talk to you, not through glass." I hesitated, but eventually stepped out. The wind was biting, and snow clung to my hair, melting on my neck. He looked at me as if he hadn't seen me in years. Perhaps he hadn't. "She told you we didn't want you there," he said, his voice tight and controlled, as if each syllable was holding back a tsunami. "She said to go ruin someone else's holiday," I told her. He flinched slightly. "That wasn't us. That wasn't me. I didn't even know you were at the door. I was carving the stupid turkey when Samantha leaned over and whispered, 'Don't worry.' Aunt Brenda handled Eli. I didn't understand what she meant until it clicked until I saw the empty seat at the end of the table. I crossed my arms, handled her. He looked ill. "Eli, you have to understand. Ever since your mum passed, Brenda's wormed her way into everything holidays decisions. She's got this twisted idea that Samantha's the golden child and you, the embarrassment." I finished for him. Dad didn't argue, which was almost worse. "I should have stopped it years ago," he said. "After your mum died, I let people fill the silence." Brenda filled it the loudest. I could see it in his face, remorse and regret. But it didn't erase the years I'd spent alone on Christmas mornings, the birthdays they'd forgotten, or the family group chats I'd been silently excluded from. "Why now?" I asked. "Why chase after me this time?" He swallowed hard. "Because it's gone too far, and because," he paused and hesitated, "because I found something in the kitchen drawer tonight after you left." He reached into his coat pocket and carefully pulled out a folded piece of paper, as if it were sacred. I took it with numb fingers. "This was a letter from your mother to my son, Eli." I blinked, my eyes burning. "She wrote it before she died," Dad explained solemnly. "She left it for you, but Samantha and Brenda, .. His jaw tightened. "They must have hidden it. I had no idea until tonight. I was looking for matches to light the extra candles, and there it was." I opened it with trembling hands. I won't quote it word for word, as it feels too personal, but in short, it was exactly what I needed to hear. She said she was proud of me. She knew how others, particularly Brenda, treated me, and that I shouldn't let them make me feel small. Her last Christmas wish was for Dad and me to remain close, and that I was not the disappointment they painted me to be. I'm not sure how long I stood there, staring at the ink. My father's words cut through the silence. "She didn't want this family to become what it has. I didn't protect you from it, but I can now." Something in me shifted, slowly and painfully, like a knot that had been tied for years suddenly unraveling. "She left this for me," I mumbled, "and they buried it." He nodded. "Brenda knew what it would do. That's why she kept it from you." I clenched the paper in my fist. "And Samantha," he paused. "She ... She let it happen. She's been listening to Brenda for too long." Of course she did. The favoritism was never disguised. Samantha could do no wrong since we were kids, and I was the one who wasted potential by choosing art school over law, who didn't rush into marriage, and who moved out of state. It always baffled me how a family that preached love could become so cold when you didn't fit their perfect mold. My jaw tightened. "I need to know the truth, all of it." My father hesitated, then nodded once, then come back. Just for a moment, not to celebrate, to confront. I stared at him. "You're asking me to walk back into that house. I'm asking you to let them see what they tried to erase." I didn't respond right away, but I started heading back to the car, toward the house that had tried so hard to forget me. And in my pocket, I held the one thing they couldn't take, Mum's words, her truth. 10 minutes later, we pulled back into the driveway. Lights twinkled in the shrubs, and the warmth of the house glowed through the windows, like a stage set awaiting its final act. But this time, I wasn't standing at the entrance, waiting to be accepted. This time, I was lowering the curtain. What happened when I walked through that door? They stopped laughing. The front door creaked open before I could even reach it. My father must have called someone, because Aunt Brenda was already standing in the hallway, lips pursed and arms crossed, as if I had arrived unannounced at a funeral. Well, she continued, look who's back. I stepped past her without speaking. The smell of honeyed ham and baked yams lingered in the air, mixing with the low buzz of uneasy silence. As I walked into the dining room, every eye turned to me. Samantha's hand froze mid-bite. Uncle Mike stopped sipping his wine. Even the dog stopped chewing the scraps it had snagged from under the table. Nobody said anything. The room held its breath. I looked around the table, letting the stillness linger and absorb their thoughts. Then I held up the letter. This, I continued slowly, was buried in a drawer. Hidden. Brenda shuffled in the hallway, her fingers tightening on the stem of her wineglass. That's private. You had no right. No, I replied sharply. You had no right. She wrote this to my son, not to you, not to Samantha, to me, and you kept it from me. Samantha stood up, partly indignant and half uncomfortable. Eli, you don't even know the full story. That letter, Mum was sick when she wrote it. She wasn't thinking straight. I turned to face her completely. She was thinking clearly enough to say I was being left out, that you were allowing Brenda to treat me as if I were a mistake, and that Dad and you needed to step up. Her gaze flew to Dad, who stood calmly beside the doorway. When she realized he wasn't going to save her, her voice rose slightly. You left. You moved away and ghosted us. I didn't ghost you, I responded quietly and firmly. You shut the door. I came to Mum's bedside and was told not to stress her out. I messaged you on her birthday. I called you when Dad had that fall. Every time it was a brick wall. And when I did show up, you made me feel like I didn't belong. Because you never stayed, Samantha said, her tone tinged with old resentment. You always ran off to your little artsy city life and left the rest of us here to deal with everything. I chuckled, more out of disbelief than humor. You mean you and Brenda? You two practically pushed me out. Every time I tried to reconnect, it was like showing up to a party no one wanted me at. Aunt Brenda spoke again as she stepped fully into the room, her eyes cold and narrowed. Maybe that's because every time you come back, you bring drama. We've done just fine without you. Right, I replied with a shrug, which is exactly why you made sure this letter never reached me. Because deep down you knew the truth. You knew she didn't agree with how you've been running this family. She saw you for what you are. Brenda clenched her jaw. That letter doesn't change reality. We had to keep things together after your mother passed. We needed order. You mean control. Dad remarked quietly, his first word since we arrived. Brenda stared at him, astonished. Excuse me. Dad stepped forward, his voice firm. You took control. Brenda, I let you. That's on me. But hiding that letter, that's on you. The table was completely silent now. My cousins looked around uneasily, and shifted in their seats. The infant in the bassinet let out a quiet coother, only innocent sound in the entire home. Samantha sat back down slowly, as if her legs had given out. So what do you want, Eli? You came back just to make a scene. I tilted my head. No, I came back because my dad deserved to hear what his wife wanted, and because I deserved to hear what my mother said to me before she died. I took a step toward the table and carefully placed the letter in the center, near the cranberry sauce that no one had touched. And now I want the truth out there. I want you all to sit with the fact that you tried to erase me from my own family story. And I want you, Samantha, to look me in the eye and admit that you let it happen. Samantha did not look up. Her mouth moved as if she had something to say, but nothing came out. I turned to leave. I was not there to beg pardon or to hear excuses. But as I reached the threshold, I heard a voice behind me. Wait, Dad replied. Before you go. He approached the table, picked up his wineglass, and raised it slightly. I think there's one more toast we need to make. I didn't look around, but I could feel every eye on him. To my son, he exclaimed with a loud voice. The one person in this room who didn't pretend everything was fine while letting rot fester under the tablecloth. To the only one here who still knows what family should mean. He set his drink down. No one applauded. Nobody echoed the toast. I walked back into the snow, the door closing softly behind me, and this time, I did not feel hollow. I sensed something else. A storm brewing, because I wasn't finished, not yet. I didn't return to my apartment that night. Instead, I rented a room at a small inn near the lake, where I used to go with my mother when I was younger. It was the only place open on Christmas night, and the woman at the front desk didn't ask any questions. Instead, she handed me a key with a warm smile and said, "The heater works perfectly." I thanked her and returned to my room, where I sank onto the edge of the bed, the silence finally catching up with me. I looked at the letter again, running my fingertips over the words. Every time I read it, I discovered something new, another aspect of her voice, rhythm, and care. She closed the letter with, "Don't let them silence you ever again. The world will try to make you small, but I raised you to know better. I love you, always, Mum." I sat there for a while, just thinking. The next morning, I went for a walk along the frozen lake. The sky was dull silver, and the air had the sharp, crisp bite of midwinter. My phone buzzed with missed calls, texts, and voicemails. Samantha had finally broken her silence. Messages ranged from, "We need to talk to you," "really embarrassed," "the whole family." I didn't respond. Not yet. I needed to do it my way. When I got back to the inn, I sat down at the small wooden desk near the window, opened my laptop, and began writing. The letter was the first document I scanned. Then I drafted an accompanying statement that was neither bitter nor inflated, just facts, the truth. I shared it online on my private blog, which Mom used to read. Then I emailed the link to everyone who had gathered around the Christmas table. Then I waited. The fallout began about 4 hours later. My cousin, Logan, was the first to reach out. He wasn't someone I was ever close to, but he was always nice to me in that vague, "I'm staying out of it" way. His message was short. "Eli, I didn't know. I'm sorry. That letter broke me. I should have stood up for you. We all should have." It was the first time I had received an apology from anyone in years. The second message came from Aunt Brenda. Unlike Logan's, hers was malice disguised as sympathy. "You are making a mistake by airing dirty laundry. Family matters should be private. Do you truly want to open a rift that cannot be repaired?" I read it and then deleted it, because I did not cause the rift. It was the result of every slammed door, declined invitation, and whisper behind my back. I wasn't causing a division. I was acknowledging the one that had been present all along. Samantha called that evening. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity got the best of me. Her tone was careful, not hostile yet. "Eli, look, I saw what you posted, that letter." I didn't read the whole thing, but what? I inquired. "I think we should talk in person, not online. This is a family matter. You had years to talk," I explained. "You had opportunities to call me, invite me to birthdays, thank me for the gifts I sent. You didn't. You buried the one thing, Mom, left me. And now that people are finally seeing who you are, now you want to talk." There was silence on the other end. "You really want to fix this?" I asked. "Then tell the truth, publicly. Own it. Own what you and Brenda did. I can't just, you know how this looks, Eli. Everyone's judging us now." "Good," I replied firmly. "Maybe now you'll understand how I felt every holiday when you all made me feel like a stranger." She did not call again after that. However, others exceeded my expectations. My mother's old friend Margot messaged me. She hadn't communicated with our family in years. She said the letter brought her to tears, and that my mother had always been concerned about how Brenda treated me, even before she became ill. Apparently, she had asked Margot to stay close to me after her death, but Brenda had also intercepted it and informed Margot that I needed space. They had revised the story, telling everyone I wanted some space, and I would allow them because I didn't know until now. A few days later, I returned to the house, but not for Christmas or to reconcile. I arrived with a purpose. Dad met me. On the front steps, he looked exhausted, yet clear-headed, as if he had just woken from a long slumber. "They're gone," he explained. "Samantha, Brenda, everyone else left." I nodded. "Let's do this." We walked in together. Brenda was pacing the living room with a drink in her hand, as if she were rehearsing a big speech. Samantha sat stiffly on the couch, her eyes red with stress or frustration. I didn't give them a chance to start. "I'm taking legal action," I stated. "I talked to a lawyer. What you did hiding my mother's letter, manipulating her communication, possibly intercepting personal mail, it may not be criminal, but it's unethical, and it is grounds for cutting you out of any say in family decisions going forward." Brenda blinked, then laughed once. "Family decisions? You're barely part of this family." "That's funny," I replied, "because I just reconnected with 10 relatives who think otherwise, including Aunt Nowen. Do you remember her? She's flying out next month to see me for the first time in 10 years. Apparently, she thought I cut her off. Wonder where she got that idea." Samantha looked away. Dad stepped forward. Things are going to change, starting now. Eli's letter from his mother should have been given to him immediately. The fact that you both kept it from him, after everything, means you've lost my trust. Thomas, be reasonable, Brenda advised. He shook his head. No, you manipulated us. You convinced me that my son didn't care, that he was distant by choice. I let you fill that void after we lost her, and I regret it every day. He looked at me and said, I'm rewriting the will, effective immediately. Samantha's head snapped upward. What? I don't trust you with anything related to this family's legacy anymore, he replied, his voice chilling. Eli is the one who honored your mother's memory. He's the one who told the truth. Brenda sputtered. You're letting one letter undo everything. No, I replied. You did that. I gave her a copy of the letter, read it, really read it. Then ask yourself how someone could ever justify hiding it. I did not stay for the rest. I stepped out of that house for the last time, my head held high, the wind blowing on my face, and the sun beginning to break through the gray. Weeks have passed. Dad stuck to his word and rewrote the will. We started meeting every Sunday, just the two of us. We slowly began to repair the bond that had been strained for far too long. He even accompanied me to the lake one afternoon in February. We talked about Mum as she truly was, not the edited version Brenda had filtered over the years. Samantha and Brenda attempted damage control, a few ineffective attempts at reconciliation. Samantha's public post about forgiveness made no mention of my name. However, most people saw through it, and I didn't care. I finally understood something. Family isn't about blood. It doesn't matter who shows up to dinner or shares your surname. It's about who stands with you when the truth is revealed. And thanks to that letter, my mother's parting gift, I found my voice again. They tried to lock the door on me. I walked through it anyway. This time, I made sure it slammed shut behind me.